Hello and welcome to the OTB channel. Well, in the wake of all the Ubuntu releases, the new LTS edition, Pop OS followed up last week with their own Pop OS 20.04. And it's different. This time, as well as your Gnome desktop, it also has a feature in where you can use it sort of as a tiling window manager. Sounds interesting? Let's take a look after the intro. Okay, welcome back. So Pop OS. I must admit I've put this one off for a few weeks. Those of you who watch my channel will have noticed that there are very few reviews of distros that use Gnome. And the reason for that is it's not my personal preference. And if Pop OS did a Mate version, you could pretty much guarantee that's the one that I would have downloaded. But I haven't got a choice with Pop OS. So I thought I'd give it a go anyway and see what it was all about. And in doing that, I'm going to make a conscious effort to not review it on the basis of Gnome, because Gnome is not my favourite desktop environment, but to review it more in terms of the distro more generally. One of the big questions that I keep hearing is, well, what's the difference between Pop OS and Ubuntu? They both use Gnome. They're both based on the Ubuntu repos. So why? Well, what you have to remember is that Pop OS is developed by a company called System 76, who is a hardware vendor who sell laptops and desktops that are pre-configured with Linux. It seems to be quite a well-known name in the US, not perhaps so much here in the UK, but it's clearly in their interests as a hardware vendor to supply all their machines with software that just works and fully supports all the hardware. So yes, they do go the extra mile to ensure the experience of their customers is good. So that alone could make the difference, but actually there's a few other things that differentiate it. And I'm just looking through a website here. Some of the things that come to mind immediately are they've stayed closer to stock Gnome than Ubuntu, so there's a much more minimal feel to the desktop experience. They have completely different shell themes, so it doesn't look like Ubuntu. It has its own look and feel, that's for sure. It has its own installer interface, and the installer interface is apparently very straightforward and intuitive. We'll see in a minute when I go through it. And a big thing here is encryption is the default. If you don't want your drives encrypted, you have to opt out of that. So in terms of security, that's clearly, a definite positive, especially if they're looking at selling these into the corporate world. What else? Apart from the themes, apparently there's pre-installed Vulkan drivers. I'm not a gamer, but apparently these are important if you are. It has its own software center, which has a range of Flatpaks. Yeah, I said that right. Flatpaks, not snaps, and debs. If you're a gamer, it's really easy to set up your system, just downloading Steam and Lutris, and it's essentially set up out of the box from what I understand. We've got the firmware manager that we saw in Ubuntu Mate the other week, a new app for creating bootable USB drives, and a range of other bits and pieces. So things like There are two different ISOs that you can download. There's one specifically for Nvidia, which comes with the drivers baked in and all set up ready for hybrid graphics, which can be a pain to set up. And another image for AMD or Intel GPU machines. Comes with proprietary drivers shipped by default. It's pre-installed with development tools like curl, git, build essentials. No maximize or minimize buttons by default. Mouse acceleration toggle in the system settings. And for laptop users, TLP is installed by default, which is great. And hardware video decoding is enabled by default in the video players. Is there anything else that makes it special? You also get to update the system on your terms. So if you want them coming out all the time, that's up to you. If you want to control when the software patches hit, well, that's easy as well. And they set up a recovery partition. So if you want a clean slate, you can basically reset everything whilst preserving the files and settings in your home folder. So there's enough there to make it different. If this was just another Ubuntu distro with different clothes on, I probably wouldn't even be looking at it. But the fact is, there's a lot more to it, and I keep seeing it being recommended for new users in particular. But clearly developers aren't going to have a problem with it either. It seems to be pitched towards everyone. What they've recently done as well is they've introduced a feature where you can actually tile windows in Gnome. This isn't enabled by default, but you can switch it on and off. And there's a whole range of key bindings that help you manage your windows when you're doing that. So it's an interesting feature. My first thoughts are, is this really something you'd want in a floating desktop manager, or desktop environment, should I say? I'm not sure. I'd need to have a look at it first. So with that in mind, let's boot into the operating system in VirtualBox and see what we think. So let's start just by running through the installation. You should see in front of you the Pop OS installation screen. I've booted the ISO in VirtualBox in EFI mode, and I've allocated it 2 threads of my processor and 8 gig of RAM. When I booted, it took me straight into this screen, so let's just follow along. English, that's absolutely great. I should actually mention before I start that as soon as I booted, I got a little notification up here telling me that it had identified my wireless printer. So, quite impressed. Right, language, United Kingdom. English UK. Yeah, absolutely. Default keyboard, select. What do I want to do? Do I want to do a clean install or do I want to do an advanced install? Well, let's just do a clean install and see what it does. Highlight the drive. There's only one. It's a virtual drive with 40 gig of space given to it. Let's erase and install it. Now, interestingly, this is one of the items which makes Pop a little bit more unique than most Linux distros. It will encrypt by default, and you have to opt out. I'm going to encrypt by default. I'm just going to follow that along and choose an encryption password. And reconfirm it. And then set it. It's now getting on with the partitioning. So I'll let this run and speed up the process, and we'll come back once it's done. Right, so that's it finished. It didn't take very long. And we're asked to restart. So I'm going to shut this down to start off with, just to make sure that the ISO has been removed, and we'll come back once I've rebooted. And we're back, and I'm just rebooting, and it's immediately asking for my encryption password. So let me just enter that. Oops, and it helps if I activate that. There we go. So hopefully that unlocks. Yes, it has. And it obviously needs to go and set up user details at this stage. So it's set up encryption successfully. So I'm expecting it to move on and continue with the process. I suppose this could take a little time. But we're getting no feedback at all at this stage, which is a little disconcerting. So let's just wait and see. Here we are, we're back. Bienvenue. Okay, next. Right, select your keyboard layout or an input method. Right, so I want English UK, it's already ticked. Let me click next. Location services. Do I want them on or off? I'll leave them on for the time being. Time zone, it's correctly picked up I'm in the UK, so that's all good. Connect your online accounts. Okay, good to be asked at this stage, I suppose, but let's just skip that for the time being. And now let's enter details about me. So I'm OTB, and let's set my password. Okay, apparently it's a weak password, but that's okay. I'm going to continue anyway. All done. Start using Pop OS. I presume at this stage it's setting itself up again. But I have to say that those blank screens can be quite disconcerting. So, we're here. And we have a very plain looking Pop OS screen. Which is your standard Gnome OS, I suppose. It would have been nice to see a welcome screen or something just to start off with, but hey, that's just me. Let's just very briefly have a look at what's here. So, what have we got? A calculator, a calendar, contacts, files, Firefox web browser. Let's just have a look at files. Theming is fine. It's nothing spectacular like the latest version of Ubuntu Gnome that I've seen, but it's not boring. I quite like the colours. That's fine. Let's go back. These are all the Pop Shop, the Firefox web browser, Geary for your email, Office, which I presume is, yeah, it's the LibreOffice suite, the Pop Shop, settings, the system, which is all the normal utilities. Let's just open up System Monitor while we're here to see what it's actually using. And it's using 1.1 gig. Okay, this is in VirtualBox, so it's not dreadful, but it's not exactly a lightweight distro by any stretch of the imagination. Right, I'm not quite sure what that was, but hey-ho. Let's go back here. What else have we got? The terminal, a text editor, utilities, which are all the normal ones that you would expect, including a USB flasher, which is great, and a weather app. Okay, so you wouldn't call this bloated. It comes with quite a minimal set of applications. Now, to my mind, that's a good thing. And of course, we have the Pop Shop. So let's have a look at the Pop Shop. Installed, nothing's been installed from the Pop Shop. So let's go to Home and see what's there. So accessories. Let me see if I can just increase the size of this. So what have we got here? All the normal things, and I believe it's incredibly easy to just install Steam and Lutris from this shop. And I don't think these are actually snaps. I think they are standard deb files, and here we are. It seems to have loaded itself properly now. And here on the front screen we can see the sort of things that they expect us to install straight away. So Telegram, Steam, Lutris, Spotify, Alacrity, Peak. I'm not sure what Peak is, to be honest. The Chromium web browser. Okay, so if I went for, let me say, the Chromium web browser, I click on that. It's a Pop OS deb. Okay, so we know we're not installing a Flatpak, which is great. Let me try something else. How about Telegram? So that's a Flatpak, but we have the option to install a deb as well. Okay, I quite like that. Let's have a look at Spotify. A Pop OS deb or a Flatpak, so we can choose. And I don't know. Let's go for Atom, a Pop OS deb or a Flatpak. I quite like that. You can see at a glance whether it's going to be a Flatpak or whether it's going to be a standard deb. And I would personally always go for debs if they're available, but good to get the choice. What have we got up here? Right, so this is the famous tiling. So let's look at this in a bit more detail. But before we do that, because this is a new feature, let's go and have a look at the settings and, in fact, things like wallpaper choices. So let's have a look at change background and see what sort of selection Pop OS has actually got. It's taking a little while to load here, but I can see we've got a fair selection. Let's just make sure I haven't clicked tiling by accident. No, I haven't. So, yeah, there's a range there. I have to say this. The theming and the wallpaper for me is largely irrelevant because I would always change it anyway. The logo, though, it's very cartoony. It would appeal to a 10-year-old, I'm sure, but it doesn't appeal to me. That's personal preference, though. So it does come across as very clean and very professional. It's just not to my taste. So you've got the option there of various different wallpapers, which you can just click, and off we go. And yeah, what was I saying about cartoony? Wouldn't be to my taste. But we've got the main settings menu up here. What about appearance? So we can go for the dark theme, or we can go for the light theme. I prefer the dark theme, I must be honest. Takes a little while to come back. Let's just go through the settings here. So I'm connected by Ethernet, and it's obviously got that identified. No Bluetooth found. Appearance, we've just been there. For some reason, it seems to be a bit laggy at the moment. Might just be my box. Notifications. Okay, you've got a fair amount of notifications turned on by default. Search. Control which search results are shown. Okay, well, I think that's quite nice. Applications. System features used by this application. Notifications. and what are your default handlers. So archive files, other files, package files. So let's have a look at other files. Okay. Package files. RPMs. Interesting. And SPMs. Right. The calculator, the calendar. Oops, I think we need to go back. We're into applications there. Privacy. So connectivity checking is used to detect connection issues and help you stay online. Okay, quite nice. Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt security level could not be determined. Okay. What else have we got here? Online accounts we've seen already. Sharing. So screen sharing off or on. Does it do anything if I click on that? Not at the moment. Sound, I've actually got this disabled at the moment, so it's just a dummy output. Power, so what to do is in terms of when is the screen blanked and the suspend and power button. Displays, well, it's picked up 1920 by 1080. Needless to say, I didn't have to install any VirtualBox guest editions. It just worked out of the box. And I can scale up here. Okay. 100% or 200%. 200% is probably going to be way too big. But revert settings. Yeah, I think so. We'll just keep it at 100%. But good to have the option. And the high DPI daemon is already running. Mouse and touchpad. Okay, primary button, what does that do? The left button, the right button, etc., etc. Keyboard shortcuts, of which there are actually quite a few. What about printers? Interesting, it's actually picked up my printer. It did that as soon as it booted. What does this do? Printing options, printer details. Let's have a look at printing options. Let's print a test page to see if it picks it up straight away. Yeah, it's communicated with the printer and it's about to print out a test page. You can hear that in the background, and I'll pause this until everything's been done. Okay, so all good there. That works. Removable media. What do we want to do when we click on some or when we insert a USB stick? Oh, hold on. Let me shut that down first. Okay, all good. Color, firmware. Right, so if I had any devices that supported firmware updating, this would actually do the job. I presume this is the same thing that we saw in Ubuntu Mate when I did the review of that, but I believe Pop OS actually developed that. Regional language, universal access, users, and default applications. So what do we want to use? You can hear my printer there in the background. So all the normal stuff. Right, so let's see what this tiling is about. And I'm presuming it's up here. So before we click on that, let's just click on that to see what they say. So pop shell keyboard shortcuts. Okay, so arrow keys as normal, or we can use the Vim shortcuts. Super / launches and switches applications. Okay. Super and the arrow keys switches focus between windows. And to move, resize and swap windows, super enter gives us adjustment mode, and then all the various bits and pieces in between. And we can move workspaces and do all the normal things. Right, well, let's see how it works. I don't know what an active hint is, but I'm going to click show active hint anyway. And let's tile windows. Right, okay, so all good. Let us start off by hitting super and /. Right, so if I type terminal, let's see what happens. Okay, So I'm there, and in order to switch focus, I presume it's super and left, super and right. Okay, all good. What does it actually mean when I hit super and enter? It says I will hit adjustment mode. Okay, so super and enter. We'll do that now. To move window, I can just move it to the left. Okay. To increase the window size, shift and okay, or presumably the other way. Right, so that works. To decrease the window size, yeah, the same thing. To swap windows, control. Okay. That's just swapping the focus there. I'm looking at that. And then to apply changes, hit enter. Okay, move current window up one space. Super shift up. So super shift up. Right, so how do I actually move to that next workspace though? Let's have a look. Move workspaces, I presume. There we go. So that's now moved to the second workspace, and we still have that on the first workspace. Okay. So let's bring that up. What else do we have? Change window orientation. Super and O. Super and O. That's not actually doing anything at the moment. Toggle floating mode. Super and G. I presume that is floating mode. Ah, right. I can see it there. Yeah. Fine. Close window is super Q. And so let's just try that. Super Q. Right, let's try it again. Super G. Super Q. Okay, so super Q works. So let's do that again. Let's move down to the Gnome terminal. Does it open another terminal for me? No, it doesn't seem to. Let's launch the navigation key help again. Switch focus to the workspace above, switch focus to the workspace below, switch window down. Okay, so let's go super control up, super control down. Right, I've got it. So right, this is not easy. Actually, better off just choosing that, I think. Okay, toggle maximize, so that would be super and M. I presume that's maximize, and that's unmaximized. Activate launcher, well, we've already done that. Super and /. Enter a command in a terminal. T:, so T:. T:. It's not really working for me, this. And execute a command in SH. Maybe I need to be in a terminal before that actually happens. So let's pick a terminal. T. Right, okay. So that brings that up. And if I just hit Q. Right, okay. It's interesting, I think. Is it fully complete and does it do the job? I'm not sure. What have we got there? Gaps. Let's just open a couple of terminals here. So let me go back to tiling mode and hit that. Super. Right, so terminal. And let's open another terminal, please. It doesn't want to open a second terminal for me. I wonder why that is. Interesting. Okay, because I've already got one terminal open. Is that the reason? Let me try again. Let's go to a terminal. And where has it put those? Do you know what? I'm just going to turn this off at the moment. So that's Pop OS's tiling mode, which I think would take a little bit of getting used to. Remembering all the shortcuts for one thing. So what do I think of that? Well, I'll be honest, I'm not overly impressed so far, but there's not a lot else to say about this operating system now, so we'll go and have a chat in a minute because it comes with a small amount of apps installed, okay as far as it goes, quite like some aspects of the Pop Shop, quite impressed at the encryption as a default, and there it sort of ends. So let's go and chat. So Pop OS. Okay, let's bring it together. I'm not going to be distracted by the fact that it uses Gnome, because if I was going to use Pop OS, the first thing that I would do is install another desktop environment. And on the plus side, there are a whole range of reasons why you would choose Pop OS as opposed to the standard Ubuntu. System 76 are a hardware vendor, so it's in their interests to make sure that the operating system that they sell as default with their systems gives their customers a complete out-of-the-box experience. So they work very hard to make the experience very smooth and very professional. And there are various things in there that I really like. I like the fact that it's not bloated, that it comes with a very sensible and minimal range of applications. I like the Pop Shop, the fact that you can choose between Flatpaks or Debs and not a snap in sight. Not that I've necessarily got too much against snaps, but it's nice to see Flatpaks there as an option, which personally I'd prefer. But we won't go into that now, the reasons why. I like the fact that it offers encryption as a default and you have to opt out. So that's a good security feature. And I thought the theming as far as Gnome is concerned was fine. That's as far as I go. I didn't think it was a pretty desktop. And personally, although it's not important, I dislike the wallpaper selection and the general look and feel of Gnome, but that's something that can be changed really, really quickly. So, as a viable alternative to Ubuntu, and asking myself the question, is it a better Ubuntu? Well, possibly, to be honest. And I'm sure if I put a Mate desktop on it, for instance, I would be very happy with it. And if I was a gamer, I would be over the moon because I can download Lutris and Steam and apparently don't have to jump through so many hoops. So all good. But let's get to the tiling. I think it's a really positive thing that developers will try and integrate new functionality into a desktop operating system. And many of the problems I was having there were to do with me being unfamiliar with that tiling within Gnome. And for instance, I found out after I played a little bit more with it, once I'd finished the recording, that if I've got my workspaces showing in the right-hand pane, the shortcuts aren't going to work. So, yeah, let me take responsibility for a lot of the things that didn't happen there. Ultimately, though, if you want a tiling window manager, you install a tiling window manager. If you want a floating desktop environment, that's what you install. Is there a market for a hybrid, or what we here in the northwest of England would call neither fish nor fowl? I'm not convinced. It doesn't tile as well as a tiling window manager would do. And yes, you retain that desktop environment feel and support. I wouldn't use it. Put it that way, I wouldn't use it. It might have a market. I don't know, but first impressions were not particularly positive of that. But it shouldn't take away from the fact, putting that aside, that, yeah, Pop OS is a fine operating system. So, they may well change that tiling feature around so that it feels a little bit more or a little less clumsy, because that's how it felt to me. But again, that could just be me. So that's it for today, guys. Don't forget to join us on Library and come and join us on my Facebook group. But for now, you have a great day and look after yourselves.